want you guys to understand is that hitting is not, it's not one thing. There's not one specific mechanic that works. There are a couple of negotiations within it. But I just want you guys to kind of understand that there are a lot of different coaches that talk about a lot of different things, and just kind of making sure that you guys understand that there are some things that we're going to go through today that everybody has to do. And I'm going to give you guys some proof on that and what some elite hitters do. But just to kind of get started into the non-negotiables is the setup and athleticism that I want all of you guys to kind of understand when you guys are hitting. So as hitters, there's a lot of people that go to hitting coaches on their own. And a lot of times the hitting coaches go through different mechanics and things like that. But we talk a lot about athleticism. The big thing with athleticism is, and any sport that you guys play, those are going to translate into baseball. So when we go into our approach and our setup, I kind of look at some people like Albert Pujols, who has a little bit of a lower type setup where he's a little bit more on his legs. And then you kind of look at a guy like Cody Bellinger, who starts super high up and he loads into an athletic position. So for all of you guys, the one position that we talk about a lot is the load or the launch position or the slot position, the load and stride. So everybody talks about it differently. But for us, we talk about it as a slot position. The slot position is basically when your front foot is down and your hands are back, right? And so for us, when we talk about that position, that is really the base of what we do on everything. So when we talk to all of our hitters, we talk about athletically setting up, making sure that the feet are shoulder width apart to start, at least in the youth levels. Understand if you're a younger guy, the movements that you're watching on TV are very, very advanced and very elite. So we have to have a baseline of where we start, right? So for all of you hitters, if there's a flaw in your swing that you think you have an issue with, go back to the basics. Go back to the easy part of the swing. Don't overcomplicate this whole thing. The reason why is because there are so many in-depth ideas and so many things that you could go through in the swing. We want to simplify everything, right? So for the guys that don't understand what simplify means, what we're trying to do is make it easier for you. Because if Austin and I or Nicholas or I or Jake and I are having a conversation about hitting, it's probably going to be a little bit more in-depth than if I was talking to one of you guys, because we look at this stuff every day and we teach it every single day. So understanding that athleticism is number one. Be an athlete. When you go play basketball and you're playing defensive basketball, you get to an athletic position. If you're a linebacker or you're a running back in football, you get to an athletic position. Baseball needs to be done the exact same way. Okay? Be an athlete, right? And so when we talk about quote unquote mechanics, realistically, we want you to be as athletic through your whole swing as possible. And so if we are going to break down a drill or a skill with you guys, it's only to get you to a more athletic position as much as we can, right? And then getting into that load, that launch, or that slot position, I'm actually going to pull up a video right now of a kid that he's been in here that I work with. And when you guys watch him hit, I'm just going to show you the load or the launch position that we're talking about. So he sent me this video the other day. And when you guys are watching him get to position, you see when his front foot lands, where are his hands? They're up and they're back, right? And so what you notice is that guy is going to be able to hit breaking balls very well. This is a little bit for the older guys because his hands are staying back, right? And as you watch him kind of go through this whole swing here, you can see that as he approaches to get through contact, his body and his head are staying still. And so when I look at a swing like this, I see somebody who's extremely athletic, right? And to pull up another guy that we have, he's a little bit younger than him, but it's kind of the same exact setup, right? So when you watch them, when they get their front foot down, what you notice is that their hands are still back, right? And when guys like this get to positions like here, they're able to adapt to different pitches. So for a lot of you, when you're hitting, understand that we want to simplify everything. We're not trying to move too much, right? But when this front foot lands here, where are the hands? They're back and in a position to drive, okay? So this makes hitting a lot easier. So for us, the first thing that we do is we focus on this position, right? If I can get a guy to get to this position here with his hands back and his front foot down, I think that a lot of what he's going to do as a hitter is going to be very productive. right? And so realistically, a lot of what we do plays off of this. And I'll go into what Jake said yesterday about the two-strike approach. And if you look at two-strike approaches, I actually used to start in this position on my two-strike approach. And the reason for that is because this is a position that I want to get to every time. But if it was going to be hard for me to get to that in a game, I wanted to make sure that I started there to make it easier for myself so that I would shorten up and simplify with two strikes. So that's just initially what I wanted to start with. I definitely have a lot more that I can go through. But realistically, I wanted to kind of talk with you guys about athleticism. Older guys, I want to talk a little bit about getting on time and when to start loading and things like that. But mechanically, what I really want you guys to take away from today is we have to be an athlete. And if we're not an athlete, then it's going to be really hard for us to be consistent. So throw out the drop the shoulder, throw out the pull the shoulder, throw out the hips for right now. If you want to make this thing easy and simple, we really, really want to focus on being an athlete, right? I'm going to let Nicholas, Austin, or Jake kind of go from here for a little bit. I've got some other stuff to talk about, but I just want to kind of get your thoughts on athleticism and being able to be simple whenever you're hitting.
Yeah. I'll take it off for now for a little bit, and then Nick, we can go into you if you'd like. But for me, guys, there's the non-negotiable for me is you got to be athletic, just like Ronnie said, and to the legs, like our foundation. You think about our foundation and where everything starts from. It's our legs. That's where our power comes from. A lot of people think it comes from our hands or it comes from our biceps. Some people are trying to get these massive upper body, this big old chest, pumping it. But guess what? Our power comes from the ground up, using the ground as force. Think about 5th, 6th, 7th grade science class. They always talk about, hey, force, mass. How do we use the ground as force to get the most into the baseball? So when I think about the non-negotiables, like Ronnie was saying, it's one, we're getting our foot down. We've got to have good timing. Two, none of it really happens with this crazy these mechanical things. When you see on Twitter, a lot of us have Twitters, and you scroll through Twitter, you scroll through Instagram, and there's all these hitting coaches and these gurus that know everything about it. Some are good. Some have some good stuff, but guess what? If we're trying to just strictly look at these crazy drills and like dip and rip and all these different things, it's not going to do much for us. So I want to just get the launch angle thing out there and open, because a lot of us now, it's like a buzzword now. It's this huge topic. Excuse me, launch angle. Well, guess what? Our launch angle is started from our hips. If we start our swing with our hips, if we're able to drive our back hip to the baseball naturally as I drive, and let me see if I can stand up and show you. Naturally, as I get in my stance, you can see my hips. When I load into my back hip and I start my swing with my hips, look where my barrel starts to drop. I know I don't have a bat, but imagine a bat being flat through the zone, right? Think about launch angle, trying to get flat on a good plane. Well, if I use my hips first, if I think about taking my back hip, boom, to the baseball, boom, back hip to the ball, look where my barrel naturally goes. It's not up. It's not chopping a tree. It's not punching anyone. I'm getting in a good direct position. So when I work with my hitters, I'm always thinking, hey, back up to the baseball. We don't think about any crazy mechanics. We don't think about, dude, you got to do something with your front arm. It's got to be an arm bar. I had an athlete. He's 15 years old. He may even be in here up in Northern California. He's an incredible athlete. You talk about being athletic, Ronnie. This dude is a freaking athlete. But whoever he went to before was so mechanical that he became a robot. And it was, my hitting coach told me to pull my front shoulder back and let my left shoulder come forward and take my hand to the ball, like all these tools. And I'm like, okay, you have less than a second to see the baseball. You want to play at the college level. You want to play at the professional level. Do you think any of these guys have any time to think about, okay, let me take my right shoulder up and my left shoulder back and then get under the ball? We don't have enough time to do that. We barely have enough time to see ball, hit ball. So if we think back hip to the baseball, what are we creating? Well, we're creating good direction. Talked about it yesterday. What's the quickest way from point A to point B? A straight line. If I can take my back hip into the baseball, think about this, boom, I'm coming through the baseball. If you're throwing the ball at me like this, the quickest way from point A to point B is right back at me. So if we think back hip to the ball, we're loading in our hips. We're using the strongest part of our body, which is setting us up for success. It's going to put us in a good position. Now it gets to timing. We'll get into timing later. But if we're talking strictly mechanics, I think everything starts from the legs, like ground up, totally from the ground up. How do we create a good base, a good foundation for our swings to be in a good position? You see those videos that Ronnie just showed. When their foot hits the ground, their back hip's in a good position. They're ready to strike. Think about getting to your launch position, which is when the front foot hits the ground and our back hip is getting ready and it's engaged. So you see all these guys in our launch position. You see Mike Piazza, Vladimir Guerrero, Pujols, Garcia. These dudes are legends. I don't know where you found this. This is incredible.
My
But
brother
you
just
see, like,
sent it to me, dude.
oh, Nick, you're MVP. But you see, let's go to some of the most recent, McCutchen or Posey or Trout. Like, look at Mike Trout at the bottom center of this page. Like, look how still he is. And look at all these hitters. These are Hall of Fame hitters, every single one of them. Look at how similar they look. Is there any crazy mechanics going on? No, it's very simple. Their foot's down, slightly open. We're in our legs. Look at that back hip engaged, ready to fire into the baseball. We're using our legs as force. We're using our legs to hit the ball. When we start thinking too much at the plate, poor results usually follow. And we can kind of just get off that subject. But I think the biggest thing is, how do we simplify our at-bat? For us over here, at least on the West Coast, Ronnie, we're always talking back hip to the ball, back hip to the ball. Let's simplify. Let's drive our back hip to the baseball, drive it to the pitcher, drive it to the center field fence, something in the middle of the field. So I'm creating good direction. I'm staying balanced, and I'm using my power and everything we use in the weight room. I see some of you older athletes in here, Luke, crushing the weights and everything. It's awesome. It fires me up. But guess what? That is useless if we don't use our legs. If we lose our legs right away. So just understanding, hey, everything starts from the ground up. How do we incorporate our legs into our swing and use our back hip to give us that success that we want to see? And once I've heard that terminology, back hip to the ball, it clicked for me, because most of the time I'm trying to do it with my hands. So what do? I chop a tree, or I try and lift and my front shoulder pulls off. Guess what? If I think back hip, boom, I'm whacking the ball with my back hip consistently. It's something that's simple. It's something that's attainable every single time. I can repeat it every time, and it's going to put me in a good position to hit the baseball more consistently.
I'll let Nicholas elaborate on this in a second, but going off of this, if you look at, this is what I see in it. Look at Mickey Mantle. That's a long time ago when he was playing the game. And then look at Mike Trout. Look at Willie Mays. Like, look at all these dudes. Like, it's the exact same, guys. Like, a lot of people complicate hitting because they think that they have the new thing to do. Yes, the game is changing. The guys are throwing harder. The ball's moving a little bit more. But realistically, positioning is the exact same. Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, and Mike Trout all get to the same launch position, slot position, however you want to call it. And Austin, like, honestly, we talk about the same thing. Everything that we do, and guys that are hot corner, that come to hot corner understand this, everything that we do is through the middle of the field. Okay. And the reason why is because you can play so much off the middle of the field, right? Let's say I'm trying to hit a seed back up the middle of center field and I'm just a little bit late. Guess what? You're still hitting a seed in the right center gap. Let's say I'm trying to hit a line drive in the center of the field, right? And then I'm a little bit early on a breaking ball. Well, now I'm hitting an absolute laser in the left center gap. So the middle of the field is the easiest because then we're able to play for the rest of the diamond, right? So West Coast, East Coast, pitching is pitching. Right? Austin will attest to this. Everybody else will attest to this. Pitching is pitching. Pitchers are going to throw fastballs. They're going to throw breaking balls. They're going to throw changeups. They're going to try and keep you off balance. But what I noticed about all those hitters in that position that they were in right there was that every single one of them had their weight athletically distributed on their body. They're not too far back. They're not too far forward, right? Their hands are in a good, strong position to be able to fire. And then from there, if we're really talking about, quote unquote, the order of the swing, that's when the hips start to go. So from that position there, that's what Austin is saying. Let the back hip drive, right? The back hip is going to lead you to the baseball. For instance, Austin, if there's an outside pitch coming, right, fastball away to a lefty, and you take your back hip to the ball, you're going to hit an absolute rocket up the middle or left center part of the field, right? Yep. And that's because you're taking your body to that side of it. You're taking your hips to the baseball. I think that allows us to understand direction. Right. And it's going to keep you back too. And the one thing that, especially for the older guys, like for me, the changeup was like the pitch that I did not like to hit very much. I learned how to hit it when I focused on my lower half. And the reason why is because when I was thinking too much about my hands, I wanted to commit my hands really fast and really early because I thought that I had to get my hands there. But when I started focusing way more on my hips and taking my hip to the baseball, I was able to keep my hands back for breaking balls better, right? And so for a lot of you older guys, like it is the hips. I talk about it almost so much that they get annoyed by it, but it's get to a good loaded position, get strong, right? Get to that position that we just showed you guys. And I'll have my brother send it to you guys, a Twitter link in a second in the chat. But once you guys look at that, you're going to realize that that's really the whole swing happens through there. So take away the big leg kicks, take away the toe taps, the stride. That's all your own flow and your rhythm to get on time. But no matter what, everybody is getting to that position. So when we're talking about non-negotiables, that's one of them, right? You have to get to that position in order to play your whole swing. Nicholas, I'll let you elaborate on the hips and that a little bit more. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll kind of just reiterate what you said. And the reason why I like that picture so much is notice, I know a lot of people in here, they obviously watch a lot of baseball. Every single one of those players starts completely different, right? Every stance is completely different. But regardless of, where they start, every player gets to that spot. And that's why we say it's a non-negotiable, right? And it was great that Ronnie pointed out, Mickey Mantle from whenever he played in 1908 and Mike Trout of 2020 get to the same exact spot before they start their swing, right? So it's super, super important. Now, what I like about what Austin said about your hips starting your swing, what we have to understand with the hips is that's the first part of our sequence, right? So sequencing in simple terms, hips before hands, okay? So with our hips, there's a lot that goes into it, right? And there's a lot that our hips do. And what we're trying to do in simplifying this is saying, if your hips work the right way, the rest of your swing is going to work the right way, right? So Ronnie mentioned direction, right? If there's an outside fastball and I take my hips to the baseball on the outside part of the plate, the direction of my swing is going to go that way, right? Very simple. Now, when we talk about, let's say, launch angle, which is the new thing that everyone likes to talk about, well, what we have to understand is whenever you go and you fire your back hip, your hips are going to offset a little bit, right? So what's that going to do? Offset your shoulders. So what's that going to do? Offset your bat plane, right? So if you really want to dive into, let's say, launch angle, where does it start? It starts from your hips, okay? So that's why I know, the hot corner guys, they get very, very frustrated because all Ronnie talks about is hips, 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 right? But when you start to really, really dive into what your hips do, it's super, super important that we make sure that that's the first thing that goes and that it goes properly, right? Because if your hips work the right way, so will your shoulders, so will your hands, so will your swing, right? And that's all I wanted to touch on for that.
Awesome. Jake?
Yeah, so just a couple things, guys. I think the idea, you've probably heard it, and there's always a lot that goes around the internet with it, but the idea of real versus feel is a true thing, right? These guys are spot on with what they're saying. You got to get those hips through. That's where the swing starts. The sequence matters. Front hip, back shoulder separation of making sure hands are back when foot lands. All of that is true. But sometimes if a coach says that to you, it doesn't work, right? So, for instance, I have a couple players that they struggle if I say, hey, you guys, we got to get our back hip to the ball. They do better if I say, hey, your belly button should be facing the ball at contact. Outside pitch, it's not as far forward. Inside pitch, now we got to get more turns, right? So you have to understand and start to think for yourself as a hitter, what cues do you need to be successful, right? I have one hitter who I tell him, hey, I need your hips below the ball at contact. I don't care where that pitch is, because that just engages his legs when a lot of times he's all upper body, right? There's another guy that we have to focus more on hands because his hips work, but his hands cut himself off. He gets in the way. Right. So just because in your mind, you think, hey, in my mind, I got to swing down on the ball. That doesn't mean that that's going to be the result. So you have to figure out what cues work for you in your mind to make quick adjustments. And that's how you get effective in game. Okay. You talk to, like, if you see videos of Bregman, Miguel Cabrera, Chipper Jones, A-Rod, all those guys, and they're asked, like, hey, what were you thinking about? What were you trying to do? Most of the time, what they were trying to do in their mind is not physically the result of what they were actually doing. Okay, so it's okay to have a cue that yeah, this might not be right, but it gets you to the right spot, right? The goal is to be in the right spot consistently, and no matter what you have to tell yourself or what a coach tells you to get there, as long as you're getting there, we're all good, all right? So all of this stuff is great. I just wanted to put that one little piece of information for you guys, just thinking about that real versus feel segment of, what you're doing versus what you're thinking about to get to that spot.
Yeah, and to add to that, like, I want you, all of you guys to understand, I deal with this every single day when I train players, is a lot of players are looking for me to make their swing theirs, right? Yeah. I cannot physically do that for you. Understand something, guys. Like, it is your swing, and what you're feeling it's fine. You're allowed to feel that. If you think that you want to feel like your belly button is going to the catcher, but your belt buckle is going to the pitcher, like, if that's your cue and thought process, that's what works. Or for me, if I keep hitting ground balls if I'm hitting ground ball after ground ball after ground ball, my thought process immediately after that is to hit a fly ball directly straight up in the air to the top of the cage, right? And a lot of hitting coaches are going to be like, well, that's wrong. You never want to hit the ball at the top of the cage. We get that, right? I understand that. I do want to hit line drives to the center of the cage every single time, but for whatever reason today, my body wants to hit ground balls. And so, if I don't switch and think differently, then it's going to be very, very difficult for me to make an adjustment. So a lot of times hitting between you and your coaches, your private coaches or your team coaches or your friends, it's a conversation, right? It's a conversation between you guys on, if I was talking to Austin about hitting and I said, hey, Austin, for whatever reason, man, like I just can't get to the inside pitch today. There might be a cue that he gives me that makes sense that I can use instead of trying to do the same thing, right? So understand that there is no wrong answer. It's just what works for you guys, right? Yep. And that's where a lot of the conversation thing is. So when you guys are going into a practice with your coaches or teams or things like that, it's not cookie cutter, right? It's not cookie cutter. What I say to Jake might not make sense to Nicholas, might not make sense to Austin, but it works for all of them, right? So a lot of times, and if you guys have any questions about this stuff, please ask. I do want to get into some other stuff with Austin touched on inside, outside, and how to take your hips to the ball and things like that, which I really like. But the one thing that I want to hit with you guys, and I'm going to screen share again, please guys do not write on it, only because I want to show this to you. If we can't go through it, then I'm going to have to stop showing pictures and stuff like that. So I've had a lot of people.
Ron,
I've had a lot of. What'd you say?
One more thing. I was just going to say, if you have questions, like, please send them to Ronnie right now. They'll all go to him because it's on the host, but just send them to him, and then we can get to those two at the end. That's all I wanted to throw in there.
Yeah. So the one thing that I see in this, I had a lot of hitters send me this picture. I've had a lot of high school hitters send me this picture, and they say to me, how do I get here? Right? They say, how do I get here? And I'm like, you guys have to understand that this right here is just a picture, and he's actually not even focusing really on this position right here, right? This is Bryce Harper when he was a national a couple of years ago. The one thing that I want you guys to understand, and this is how you can kind of realize how good a hitter is or not, and I definitely wanted to touch on this, is body positioning. I get a lot of hitters that drift whenever they hit, and I think that's from not getting to a strong position whenever their front foot lands, and they kind of come out of their hips too early. We can talk about that for days. But the one thing that you see with Harper, if you look, his knee, his hip, his shoulder, and his head are in a straight line. And what you get in this position right here is you can kind of understand that he's generating a serious amount of power in this swing. And so when you guys are breaking video down, which I think video is a huge thing for you guys to understand where your swing is at and what you want, it's not about always looking and making sure that your swing looks like a professional athlete, but this is another non-negotiable when you're hitting, right? Yes, there are going to be times whenever you're going to get in the batter's box and you're going to take a swing and you're going to hit a single and you're out in front and all of those things. But when you look at a guy like Harper, when you look at a lot of these other elite hitters, you're seeing that this line is straight all the time. And what that does is it keeps them in a position to be able to fire and work their body the right way. So for a lot of hitters that I work with, when we get a drifting issues, is a lot of those guys actually will have an angle forward with their body. So what that's going to do is it's going to actually promote the baseball to go down. Because when you're leaning forward and your body's over top and you're kind of leaning this way, then the ball's going to go down. Vice versa. If you're leaning super far back, then the ball's going to go up. And when you look at a guy like Aaron Judge, he actually has a little bit of a lean back with him. But when you're 6'8", 280 pounds, you can hit the ball in the air and still hit it over the fence. And so what I want you guys to understand is when you guys are going through your videos and things like that, you want to look to make sure that those lines actually add up, right? And so another non-negotiable in hitting is making sure that you're in a straight line up and down. So if you really look at what we're talking about here, we're really not going into the in-depths of where's your body at in this position, where's your body at in that position. Swing mechanics and a lot of the stuff that comes in the swing, they're really, for me, what we look for are two things. Are you getting to that loaded position that we showed? And do you have a straight line up and down at contact whenever you're hitting, kind of like I saw with Bryce Harper? So for a lot of you guys, that's kind of really what we're trying to get across is let's simplify our movements. So let's be athletic, right? Let's make sure we get to a good launch or load position. And let's make sure that when we get to contact that we're straight up and down, because what that does allows our body to actually work through the baseball better, right? So mechanically, that's really all we're going to hit, right? But when you guys are going through your prep work and your swing work, if you're ever confused about something, I always say that hitting is a conversation. I can learn a lot by listening to some other people, right? And so I think that when you guys go through your sessions that you have, or you're hitting with your parents or your friends or things like that, like always talk to them. Hey, what works for you? Right? Because something may click. And for me, what clicked for me was the back hip. It's actually funny that Austin brought that up. Whenever I was hitting in college, what helped me understand how to hit better was to take my hip to the baseball. That's what really, really helped me understand how to hit to 3 different parts of the field, where a lot of hitters only take one swing in one zone and try to just drive in the middle of the field. So I think for you guys, that's a big takeaway for sure. But I want to, Austin and Jake and Nicholas, really what I want you guys to help me with, because we have our certain way to talk. What are some things that you guys talk to your players about whenever you're hitting with them on just really cues? Like, is it always hip to the baseball? Is it, when you're trying to create extension, we want to punch through the baseball, kind of punch through the pitcher? What are your cues that you give to your hitters? They are all going to be different, but we're all going to kind of get the same thing out of it.
Yeah, so I can jump on that really quickly. So for the different age groups, obviously you can go more in depth, but when we're talking about simplifying it for, let's say, younger kids who aren't really great at using their hips yet, I like to use back shoelaces to the baseball or the pitcher to make it easy just to learn the rotation. Back knee is very, very easy because you have the point of your knee that you can use at a target, and then hip. Those are kind of the 3 main ones that I use for mostly everybody. Obviously, you can get more in depth. The older you get, the more you can talk about. But if you're just trying to learn how to use your hips, which I'm sure there's some kids in here who might struggle with that, right? Use those 3. Take my back knee right to the baseball, because your leg's connected, right? So if your knee goes to the ball, your hip's going to rotate, right? Try your back shoelaces, right? Get your back shoelaces to the pitcher. If I'm the pitcher and I'm standing in front of you and I can see your back shoelaces turn towards me, I know you turned your back hip, right? So those are just 3 simple cues that you can use. 1, to get started and learn how to use the back hip. And then once you get more advanced, you can start saying, okay, I'm going to take my hips to the baseball, right? I'm going to take my hips in the direction of the ball, right? So start with something simple and then work your way up and just see what works for you guys, right? It's going to be different for everybody. Me, I was a back knee guy all throughout college. I'm taking my back knee to the baseball, right? If it's outside, I'm taking my back knee to the outside part of the plate, right? If I thought hips, I would rotate way out of the zone. Okay, so it's different for everybody.
Right.
You make a good point, Nick. I really like the hips. I like the shoelaces, especially for the younger athletes in here. Some of us between the ages of, say, 8, 9, 10, 12, even if you're in high school, maybe it's shoelaces that gets me to use my hips to drive them into the ball, because the last thing we want is to stand there like 10 man and be super stiff. And I've been there and I've done that. And my first movement used to be, I want to crush the ball. Yank the shoulder. Look where my barrel goes. This looks good on Twitter with the PVC pipe, but it doesn't look good in a game when 95's coming in, or if I'm 12 years old and the guy's throwing 60 and it feels like cheese from 46 feet away. It doesn't work very well. So I love the hips one. I love the different leg ones that you can get creative with. Whatever gets you to use your legs is huge. A couple more that I like to use is punch the baseball, or punch your brother in the face, or punch your sister in the face, but don't tell her I said that. But if she's taking your cookies, punch them in the face. They're trying to run away. Let me punch them in the face. What does that do? It gets my top hand to go directly to the ball. Boom. Now I'm delivering the barrel, right? If I can hit this ball in here, boom, that's the barrel. That's where I want to hit the baseball as many times as possible. If I can barrel the ball up, simple, easy, but challenging to do in games. So punch the baseball, punch the pitcher in the face, take the pitcher's hat off, take my head off if I'm throwing to you, hit me in the face. I want you to hit me in the face, Mason. Ethan, I want you to hit me in the face. Luke, drill it off my face. Like, I don't care. Hit it through the L screen. Little simple cues that are going to help you drive the baseball in the middle of the field. Ronnie mentioned that earlier. Hey, let's use the middle of the field. Why do we want to think middle of the field? I ask hitters all the time, what's your favorite pitch to hit? I love the inside pitch. Why? I love to pull the baseball. Okay, that's our strength. Good. We know our strength. It's really good to know your strength. But if I think middle of the field, I'm going to use more of my hips, more of my hands. I'm going to create more power into the baseball to hit the ball further with good backspin. A common thing that happens, I'm sure you guys are witnessing this as well, and some of us hitters may be experiencing this right now, is we get a lot of top spin. And if we top spin, that means our barrel's not going through the baseball. We're getting to contact very well, but we're going in and out of the zone. So what that means is I get to the ball, and then I'm immediately out of the zone. Boom, I'm in and out of the zone. I'm not getting there and staying through the baseball. So that's where that top hand comes in. Let me punch the ball. And the last one that I really like, that's very simple, and it was so simple that it blew my mind, but it totally changed my career, was fix your eyes, fix your swing. Fix your eyes, fix your swing. Think about our eyes. If we don't see the ball, we don't hit the ball. If we step into the box and our mind's not right, we're not going to succeed. I can hit thousands of swings at Hot Corner Performance and have the best instruction in the world with the best mechanics, but if my mind's not right and my eyes aren't right, I'm not going to hit the baseball. So no matter how old you are, you fix your eyes, you fix your swing. It's very easy to get into a good hitting position, and the first thing that pulls off is my head. So if I'm looking at you, boom, and my head pulls off. Guess what happens? When this opens, my barrel dips. Boom. I don't want that. If I keep my head nice and firm, with my eyes facing the baseball, I'm just like those hitters that Ronnie showed, all those big leaguers, boom, where I'm in a good hitting position to give myself the best chance. We're not going to guarantee you're going to be successful, but you're giving yourself the best chance to succeed. So fix your eyes, fix your swing. And another thing I wanted to add in there, Ronnie, before I dish it off, a lot of coaches will say, let the ball get deep. Coach, I'm out in front. All right, well, Ronnie, let the ball get deep. In my mind, and maybe this is just me, and this is why terminology, like Jake mentioned, is huge. Like, what cue can you give yourself? What verbal word can you give yourself that's going to help you be successful? Because it might be different for me than it is Nick. His is knee, mine's back hip. Maybe Jake was eyes or hands. Maybe Adam's front, like backhand the baseball with my bottom hand. Boom, let me backhand the baseball. Whatever that is, works for you. But when I hear let the ball get deep, I think of me getting beat by the pitcher and letting the ball get too far deep. So I like the term see the ball longer. If I think about seeing the ball longer, yep. I'm faced up, boom, I'm seeing it long, which means my eyes are following my barrel, boom. My eyes are naturally following my barrel. If I think about seeing the ball deep, it's like, oh, I feel like I got to go back with it. I don't like that feeling. And maybe it's just me, but when a coach said see the ball long rather than see the ball deep, it allowed me to say, wow, I got more time to see the baseball than I think. You get a guy on the mound who's throwing cheese balls, and you're like, gosh, this guy's got cheese curds. He's chucking them in there, 95. What do I do? One, you slow the game down. You load slower and earlier. It all starts with your timing. Two, see the ball long, not deep. It gives you in your mind that mental cue where you're like, oh, I've got a little more time to see the baseball to help me be more successful.
Yeah, so I want to go into I got a bunch of stuff now. I got some questions in the chat, which I'm really happy that I'm going to talk about in a second. But I'm going to flex a little bit here. I got Max Kepler's bat, Minnesota Twins, pretty cool.
Nice.
He gave it to the kid that we trained. It's at our facility. But the cool thing about this bat, and the only reason I'm bringing this up and showing it is because Austin actually mentioned something, and he went over it pretty quickly. But a lot of guys that come in my facility think that this is the barrel. Right? They think that this whole thing is the barrel. This is why we use wood at our facility and why I highly recommend using a wood bat, because the metal bats you get away with a lot, right? If you look at this bat, you can't really see it, but there's only like 3 or 4 imprints on this bat, and they're all right here. That's the barrel of the bat. That's a wood bat barrel right there, guys. You see where my hand is? It's very small. That's how you drive baseballs. So when we're thinking about small misses and trying to consistently find a simple part of the bat or a certain part of the baseball, this right here isn't going to be successful. When you watch a Major League Baseball player, when they hit the ball down here, it breaks their bat into 1,000 pieces. Small, simple movements, right? So for me, what I used to do is if I had this wood bat right here, I'd put a piece of tape, 2 pieces of tape around the whole barrel right here, and I would try to hit the baseball in the middle of that same spot as consistently as many times as I could. So again, I'm going away from thinking about mechanics, and I'm more or less looking at what part of the bat am I actually consistently hitting. So when you look at something like this, if this is the spot that I'm hitting consistently on the bat, I'm probably going to hit the baseball harder than if I'm consistently hitting this part of the bat, right? So coaches, we talk a lot about, oh, hey, that player's hands are casting, or he's dipping his shoulder. Okay, well, maybe we want to go at them visually on what part of the bat they're hitting first. So for a lot of you guys, understand where the barrel's at, right? Baseball, softball, same spot right here. And as you become more of as you become higher and higher and higher, and levels go up, that spot gets smaller. Because when you're young, I mean, the drop 10, the drop 8, Easton Mako from a couple years ago, it didn't matter where you hit it on the bat, like it was launched, right? But when you're using a wood bat, that is a very, very tiny area for error. And I think that that's a good teacher for the swing rather than focusing on mechanics. So another thing that I got in the chat was we had a guy that asked me, how do I stay on the baseball without rolling over? And I think that Austin's cue on punching the pitcher in the face is huge, right? What a lot of hitters do is when they get to the baseball, they get to it and then immediately come off the ball. They want to finish the swing as fast as they possibly can to start running, right? But my recommendation for you guys is take a good swing first, because then the running part of it will play out, right? A lot of people want to hit and run as fast as they can to get down the line. That's great. But what happens if you don't take a good swing? If you take a bad swing just to get down the line, then it's not going to matter anyway. You're going to be out, right? So for a lot of us, when we talk about extension, because that's the word that's used when you talk about extension, it's try to hit as many balls in a row as you can all the way out in front of you until you're forced to finish, right? Watch a Major League Baseball game, watch a college, professional, youth baseball game. You're going to see 1,000 different finishes, and I'll give you guys a couple examples. Mike Trout, two-handed finish, it's kind of low. Justin Upton stops his swing really high, but he doesn't fully finish. Manny Machado has a huge one-handed finish on the back end, right? So when they finish, it's all different. For those guys, they never really think about their finish. What they're more focused on is making sure that they stayed on the baseball as long as possible. So when you guys are thinking about extension, I wouldn't think about my bat staying and really extending through center field. Have the have the ball stay on your bat as long as possible. I think that's huge, right? Because it takes the mechanics out of it. I think that's ultimately what we want to try and do, is take mechanics out of the swing. Keep the baseball on your barrel as long as possible. And then what happens is you're going to stay on that long enough that you're going to stay through it really well. And then another one that I got was, so when you're 11 and 12 years old and you're facing a guy throwing 65, 70 miles an hour, which is absolute gas at that age, how do we adjust for timing? So some people would say that take your stride away or choke up. We still don't want to be defensive hitters, guys. So understand that it's, and Austin already said this, which I really liked, was start earlier. Start earlier and start slower and try to see the ball as long as possible. Yes, you're not going to have nearly as much time as if you were facing somebody throwing 45, 50, 55 miles an hour. Start early, start slow. This is where the athleticism piece comes into it, where you can control yourself, right? And try and see the baseball as long as you possibly can. I got another one. Adam actually asked, what do we do for rhythm and timing? So for us, we do a bunch of different drills for timing. Walk-up tee, I think, is huge. So for a walk-up tee, it's kind of like watching Happy Gilmore. It's like the Happy Gilmore drill. We do one where we start in the back of the batter's box and we actually step into the batter's box to allow our hips to create rhythm. There are two drills that I like to do a lot that I play side by side. So I'll just go into those. One is called the Arenado drill and one is called the Ballinger drill. Okay. So if you actually watch Arenado swing, he has a little bit of a step back in his load. And that's for him to be able to create timing and get his feet in the ground, like Austin said before. So what we do is we do the Arenado drill first. And the Arenado drill basically is where you take a small step back that'll help you load into your hip to kind of feel yourself engage. And then you kind of hit from there. And then the other one is a Ballinger drill. So we start with our feet super, super close together and we start really tall. And when we stride out, we actually try to stay in our back hip as long as possible. And what that does, it helps our hips really stay underneath us instead of focusing on jumping at the baseball or staying too far behind it. And then a lot of the stuff that we do is we try to help hitters understand a trigger with their hands. So for a lot of hitters, they stand in the batter's box really stiff. And so for them, they have no fluidity with their load and they have no rhythm and when they're getting on time. So for what we try to do is try to help hitters understand, like, how loose can you be with your hands? Forget that you're even holding a bat. Because if the focus is going to be on the lower half, then we have to forget that we're holding a bat. Because once we start to tighten up and put a lot of tension on our hands, we're going to try and rip those through the zone. And then we forget that our lower half is even there. Right. So for a lot of you guys, like if you watch Arenado and those guys hit in the major leagues, it kind of looks like they're not even holding the bat. Right. I don't know about Austin, but for me, whenever I was in the batter's box, like I was very I wanted my hands to be very, very smooth and kind of have like a methodical type of rhythm to it. It's kind of like, and we talk about timing as dancing with the pitcher. Right. And I don't know if you guys use that terminology, but for us, it's a dance. Hitting and pitching is a dance. All you're trying to do is get in sync and on time with the pitcher. Imagine watching a dance and dancing with somebody, right? and it's completely out of rhythm, somebody's going to fall over, right? But if you get in sync with the person that you're dancing with, it's going to look very smooth and flowy, right? So with you guys, focus on athleticism and rhythm and being smooth rather than focusing on, did I get to bat lag? Did I drop my shoulder? Did my shoulder come out? Because once you start thinking about your physical movements like that, it's very hard to repeat not doing that. But if you think about being smooth and then you take a swing that's not smooth, it's really, really easy to determine that in your head. So it's a lot easier to say, hey, you weren't really in rhythm there, were you? No, I wasn't. Okay, get a little bit smoother now, right? It's dancing, right? The pitcher has a dance, right? The hitter has a dance. Get on time with that pitch as best as you can. And then I got another one in here is a kid said, right now my hands are staying in the zone almost too long. So no matter if I hit the ball out front or deep in the zone, I am hitting oppo. What drill would you recommend? So a lot of that to me is a little bit like too thinking too much about the swing, right? Let's take the focus off of where on the field you're actually hitting the baseball. Because if you really, really think about it, guys, there's a lot of variables that play into where on the field you hit it. Derek Jeter was one of the best in the world at inside-outing fastballs and hitting them over the second baseman's head. He's a Hall of Famer. No one's going to ever tell him that he should pull those balls over the fence, right? Because he was very good at what he did. There's a lot that plays into that. So I don't know if you guys want to elaborate on that a little bit. Basically, is there an actual keeping your hands in the zone too long? Does that exist? And how would you adjust and help that? Austin, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I've got something. If you feel like you're hitting the ball oppo all the time and you're late, you're probably a little late. You might have to load a little earlier. So that could be one. That could be one. You're just hitting the ball deeper. You're just letting the ball get too deep, and that's just causing it. I don't think there's ever a time where you can be in the zone too long. I think it's good to be, if you have that problem, that's really good. Let's just load just a smidgen earlier to get ourselves more on time on plane so we can hit that ball out in front of the plate rather than behind the plate, if that makes sense. So if you think about a plate, say this is the front of the plate, the pitcher's over here, I'm over here. I want to hit the ball on the front of the plate rather than behind the plate. That's going to help me just with my so that's just a contact point thing. It's really good that you're in the zone long. So take that as a win. That's a small victory. That's huge. You're doing a really good job. Now let's just adjust our contact point. Let me hit the ball a little bit more out in front to create that good swing so I can be more fluid with my swing. You might feel like you're getting a little choked up or a little tight in your body because you're letting the ball get a little too deep. Let's hit the ball out in front. Let's be powerful. Like Ronnie says, be in a good power hitting position. 2, you mentioned those, like the top hand through the ball, like cutting the swing off. Here's a couple of things that you can do if you just have a bat and you're at home and you don't have anything else, if you can see me. 1, I put my bat at my hip. So I put my bat at my hip and just think, boom, driving my top hand through the barrel. Boom. It might hurt your hand a little bit if you got a little oomph in it. Boom. Let that thing drive. If you think about it here, boom, I'm taking my top hand to the baseball. Just get in the rhythm of feeling your top hand going directly to the baseball. That's going to help you a little bit as far as getting smoother, getting more direct to the ball, and hopefully staying in the zone longer. And then the third thing, be Dominican with it. Like, get a little dance with it. Do a little cha-cha dance. I don't care. Shake a leg, shake 2 legs. I don't do a little chicken dance with it. I don't care. Like, get athletic with it. Be Dominican with it. If you watch the Dominicans play on TV, Rico Suave at shortstop, you got Francisco Liriano, or Lindor, Liriano, same thing. Lindor, he's at shortstop, and the dude is freaking, like, smooth as it gets. You see Tatis Jr., you see Javi Baez. Look how smooth and fluid and free-flowing they are in the field. Think about that when you hit. Watch them hit as well. They're super loose. Like Ronnie said, it looks like they're not even holding their bat very hard. It's nice and smooth, and they're allowing their body to work. The most common thing for us athletes is we get super tense, super tight, and we try and crush the baseball. When that happens, we get tight. When we get tight, we're not allowing our body to fully work with our swing and help us to have success. So the biggest things there is, hey, let's take our top hand to the baseball. Boom. How do we do that? We can do that at home. 2, if you think about timing, like, let me get in the mirror. So I'm looking at this as the mirror. Hopefully I don't break a light in here. There's already a broken light. I'm just thinking, boom, loading slow and early. Visualizing in my mind, looking at you. I'm looking at you as the pitcher, and I'm picturing
fastball's coming in my zone. Boom, whacking it with my back hip. Whacking with my back hip, top hand, whatever cue you use. Just get used to it. Look in the mirror. Get used to seeing yourself loading slow and early, getting on time in a good power position. I like to say power position because it makes me feel like I'm powerful.
Yep.
You have the weapon. This thing can kill someone. If I chase Ronnie down with this, I can whack him in the head and kill him. If he throws a baseball at me, 1, I can fend it off. 2, it's not going to hurt me. It's going to hurt me, but it's not going to kill me. So you've got the weapon. Think about that. When I walk in the box, I've got the weapon. I'm in control. I'm in power. Like, let this thing rip. That's what I got, and I'm good.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing, and I'll kind of let Nicholas give his last remarks. So when we prioritize a lot of the things that we want to talk about, and let's say mechanics, it's being an athlete's number one. Number 2 is getting on time, right? Be an athlete, get yourself on time, and that doesn't really get in depth on are you extending. Listen, guys, here's the one thing that I learned. I didn't really dive into my swing until I got to college. Physically, I was ready for it. Okay. A lot of you guys aren't physically ready to get to where positioning on TV happens. Understand that, right? So if we can create athletes, that's number 1, and we can get you on time, you are going to absolutely love this sport because you're going to be more consistent than other people. That simplifies it for you, right? So the 2 things, athleticism and timing, that's big. And then if you do want to get into some mechanical stuff, like yes, back hip, extremely, 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 extremely important. Top hand of the baseball, extremely important. And I will give you guys some drills that what I think is very important if you guys want to learn how to hit. Grab a T-ball bat from when you guys were like 5 years old, and I would do bottom hand, top hand drills every single day. And the reason why I like those drills is because it allows you guys to understand the difference between the 2 hands, right? All of us have a dominant hand. Where I was super lucky as a hitter is I bat left-handed and I throw right. So my bottom hand, the hand that kind of guides my swing, was very good because I was able to get to the baseball. But where I struggled was my top hand, which is my non-dominant hand, was very weak. So when I struggled in the batter's box, it was because my top hand wasn't very good. And I learned that by doing bottom hand, top hand drills, right? So for a lot of you guys and the people that lift and work out, you'll really understand this when you start using dumbbells. You're going to get underneath the bench press for the first time, and you're going to be able to just pump out like rep after rep with one arm, and then the other arm is going to like die halfway through, right? And the reason why is because you're not physically strong enough yet on that side of your body to be able to do what we want to do. So a lot of separation drills and separating your body is important. So for me, the easiest one to give at every age level from 5 all the way up through college is do some bottom hand, top hand stuff, right? I want to incorporate that every day. And you can do it with or without your legs. You can do it full swing, not full swing, but learn what your arms are supposed to do. I was taught this by my travel ball coach growing up. Bottom hand is your guide to the baseball, right? When Austin say backhand the baseball, that's my guide to it. I'm attacking to the baseball with my bottom hand. My top hand is my power arm. That's the one that's going to throw that punch. That's the one that's going to punch through the baseball as hard as I possibly can. So if my bottom hand is guiding me to the ball and my top hand is punching through the ball, I'm probably going to hit the baseball pretty well. So to make that super easy for you guys, just do the drills every day, right? Do bottom hand, top hand stuff. I think that's a good drill to give you guys. Arenado drill, Ballinger drill, also very good ones. Literally just look at how those guys load up. That's the drill for you. I think it makes it super easy. Nicholas, I'll give you the go for final remarks, but I'm pretty good. I think that I touched on a lot.
Yeah, last thing, and I'll keep it short because we're running out of time. I like what Austin touched on about being direct to the baseball or softball. One thing I like to say, and a little cue that might help some people out, is we want to be quick to the baseball and then long through it, right? So what does that mean? I want to get to my bat to the baseball as fast as I can, right? And then once my bat is on the ball, I want to keep it on the baseball or softball for as long as I possibly can, right? So that's when we're talking about staying in the zone, that's exactly what we mean, right? If our bat is going way back towards the catcher, right, we're laying that bat way back towards the catcher and we're moving our arms, we're going to have a really loopy long swing, right? So bad things are going to happen. So once we get to that slot position, our hands are back, right? Our hands are back. They're where they need to be. So the only place they should go from there is towards the ball, right? Get your bat to the ball as quick as you can, and then you want to stay on that for as long as possible. Okay, and that's the last thing I got for you guys.
Yeah, at the end of the day, fellas and ladies, like whoever's in here, coaches, athletes wise, like if you can get yourself on time and think, I want to do damage at the plate. Like, how can I do damage? What is my favorite pitch to hit? And am I on time? Those are the two main things. It's simple. Like, yeah, we're not coming out here with all these crazy drills and all these crazy terminologies, but guess what? That stuff does nothing for us. If you think about the big leaguers, like I said yesterday, Paul Goldschmidt went up to the plate asking, and he said, hey, I want to hit a fastball right down the middle. Like this ball right here, right down the center of the plate. That is all I'm looking for. That's one of the best hitters in the league. So why do we complicate it so much and try and do so much more? Let's get back to simplification. Let's make things simple on us. Let's make the game a little easier on us, because it's really hard to find consistent success in baseball. And we can do everything right and still get out. So if we can just simplify the game, and whatever mental cue it is, whatever verbiage you got to use, whatever words work for you, find those, talk with your coaches, ask us questions. We're always here to help you. And think about, hey, what do I need to do to help myself get in a really good position to hit the baseball? Sound good? I love it. I love it. We'll be back here tomorrow. Same thing. 1 p.m., I believe. Same thing. This is going to be the same link for the next 3 weeks or so. So let us know. Like, if you got any questions that after this, DM us on Instagram at any of our platforms, Dugout Coalition, and we're here to help. Send us a message, send us an email. If your parents are around, have them email us. If you got a few questions, say, hey, I thought about it tonight. This thing didn't make sense. Ask the questions. We don't get better if we don't ask. So let's keep asking, and then it helps us learn how to present different things for you guys to continue to grow. So we appreciate you guys popping on again. This is incredible. Keep encouraging your teammates. Keep encouraging those around you. We're getting more guys and girls in here, which is awesome. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.
See ya.